the representative from the Baptist Church to give our
He
invocation.
was first.
Are any of you interested in giving the invocation?
Say you get sick from it.
Well, in that case, if I could just have your attention, I'll give the invocation. Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight asking for your presence here and that you would guide us, guide our decision-making. Help us to have good discussion about those decisions that need to be made. We just pray that we will always keep the city and the city residents at the forefront of our minds in everything that we do. In your most holy name we pray. Amen. It's 7 o'clock by the clock on the wall, so I'll call our meeting to order and ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Devin, would you take roll call, please?
Mike Connell.
Here.
Chad Fuller.
Here.
Mindy Galvin. Here. Larry Lambert.
Here.
Bob Porter.
Here.
Steve Wallace.
Here.
Mayor Sue Newman.
Here.
All is accounted for.
Wonderful. We move on to approval of our agenda.
I move that the agenda be adopted as printed.
Second.
We have a motion by Mindy, seconded by, is that Bob?
Me.
All those in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. And then reading and approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
I move that we suspend the rules, waive the reading, and approve the minutes for the July 7th, 2022 regular meeting with one modification on page 2, where we reference the approval of funds for booster pump for the water treatment plant. To have that read 2 booster pumps purchased as opposed to 1.
Second.
We have a motion from Larry with a change to the previous minutes regarding the fact that we approved 2 pumps to be purchased and not just 1. The motion was seconded by Steve. All those in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Larry, are you okay if I change the words to say the same thing? Okay.
Yeah, I just didn't want to have anybody reference the minutes and say that we spent $4,000 on
Yeah.
a single pump.
Thank you for
Good catch.
noticing that, yeah. Moving on then to pre-approved reports and presentations. We have our Perry Pride winner and honorable mentions and put your best face forward winners for July. Who is that, Bob?
That's me.
Okay.
We have Kathy Edwards and Deborah Tompkins here. Well, every month the one council member during the summer gives out something for everyone who's nice, keeps their lawn and landscape looking nice, and I thought you looked real nice.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
It's very much appreciated.
It's nice to see people care about their property.
Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Devin wants to get a
Yeah, we
picture.
want to get pictures.
Let's give him a hand.
Very nice, thank you. It's a lot of work.
Then I put your best face forward was McDonald's.
Our
I don't
McDonald's
think
people
anybody's
here.
here. Nope.
Are you guys here for public comment or will you answer with that?
No, we're just here.
Oh.
There was 2 names on it, so I wanted to make sure that Bill was here, that we got her in there too.
Thanks, Bob.
Oh, that's nice.
We'll move on then to public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to address council during public comment tonight?
I do. I just want to recognize that Mike, my husband, did a lot of work in that yard.
Well, let's give Mike a hand too. Wonderful. Thank you for doing that.
Excuse me, I have to leave and go home.
Well, thank you for
We
coming.
need to water.
Yes, it was good to see
Always
you.
watering. Thank you, folks.
Yes,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
No other public comment? We'll move then to communications. Devin, do you have any?
So I just want to remind everybody that the city will be having an election August 2nd, and it polls open at 7 a.m. They close at 8 p.m. Absentees are available. You can contact our office to get an application to have an absentee picked up or mailed to you. And also, if you are not aware, if Monday through Friday 8 to 4 to reach us doesn't work for you, the Saturday prior to the election, I'm open 9 to 5 just for absentees, and that is July 30th, if you'll mark your calendars for that.
Thank you, Devin. I do have just a few things I'd like to bring to your attention. One very positive voicemail that I had today from Wayne Tora, who lives at 206 West Rolfe Street. Complimented our ordinance enforcement officer, Ron Krasnecki, and said that he's doing a good job and it was a good hire for the city to bring him on. And I'll second that. He's really making a lot of progress and does a great job with his reports and communication. We also have to announce that starting October 1st, we'll have an opening on the SADA board, and that's the Shiawassee Area Transportation Authority. We have 2 representatives there. Devin is one, and the other one is James Hugulett, prior mayor, but he sent me an email and is resigning effective the date of the end of his term, which will be October 1st. So I just wanted to put that out there and see if anyone has interest in that. They can call and talk with Devin or myself. Devin could certainly tell you what goes on at the meetings, how often they occur, and things like that. And if you'd like to be considered for that seat, please let me know. You can email me or call on the phone. And I did have communication from a lady from the Perry Garden Club, and she is now in touch with Genevieve Cottrell with the food bank, and they're going to try to coordinate with some other volunteers from the area and do a community garden next spring. And so they're coordinating that with John Souter of the DPW to see what a good location would be, where there'd be water available and so forth and so on. So if anybody's interested in being involved with that, you can call the food bank and talk to Genevieve, or you can send me an email and I will forward that on to the people that need to know. And that is all of the reports that I have. Do we have any committee reports?
I'll give a quick update, on a couple of committees that met last week. First off, the ordinance committee met on last Thursday the 14th, and you'll see later on in the agenda that we have some proposed ORB ordinance revisions that we'll be talking about, as well as a update potentially to our nuisance abatement activity. We also did review at that meeting our current open burning ordinance and agreed with some input from our fire chief, Guy Hubbard, that we will be rewriting that ordinance and bringing it forward for obviously council review and possible approval in the future. We also will be looking at our ordinance dealing with sidewalk size or width of our sidewalks, as well as our tree and shrub ordinance that has been on the books for a number of years, and see whether or not that is currently appropriate or whether there's any proposed modifications that we'll ultimately bring forward. Our next meeting currently is set for August the 25th at 10 a.m. here in council chambers, where we'll be talking about the items I mentioned. Moving on, we did have a technology and communication meeting following the ordinance meeting, since it's the same committee members. We reviewed our current communication tools that we use within the city, and at the request of council, we were asked to look at whether or not we thought we should have any kind of new technology that's out there that we continue to get emails and flyers about such things as TextMyGov, GoGov, etc. And after some discussion, we consensed that we would recommend that we do not pursue any other smartphone-based features right now. We do want to continue and encourage all of our residents, if they haven't already, to sign up for Smart 911 as an emergency notification tool. Information on that is contained on our city website homepage in terms of how to sign up for that. We feel that is a vital tool, along with the continued use of our new website, as well as the bulletin board at Carl's and a number of other things. So right now we think that let's utilize those to our maximum capability and not try to pursue an additional cost and burden on the residents. Comments, questions?
Thank you, Larry. Any other committee reports? We'll move on then to presentation and approval of the bills.
I move that we approve the bills as presented.
Second.
And that payment be authorized. Second.
We have a motion from Steve, seconded by Bob, to approve the bills as presented and payment be authorized. All those in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. We don't have any old business tonight, so we'll move into new business. Our first item of new business is discussion and determination of referendum petitions. This is in regard to petitions that were circulated around the city of Perry, asking that it go on the ballot for the voters to overturn or rescind the ordinances 360 and 361. Those are the ordinances that allow one medical marijuana provisioning center, and then 361 is the zoning ordinance that describes how that has to be positioned and what is required for it to be where they want it to be. Devin reported to us that there were enough signatures collected to put that referendum on the ballot in November for resolution to repeal ordinances number 360 and 361. We can certainly allow those to move ahead, but because they did achieve enough signatures, it puts our ordinance in a stagnant position. We cannot move ahead on any further actions with that ordinance. Our attorney, Justin English, advised us that we should return the applications that we had received, that we had thought would go to a lottery drawing this month. So we've canceled the lottery drawing, the applications have been returned, and it's now up to council, because council has the option of either allowing this to go to a vote or to approve the repeal right now. If we, according to our attorney, if we repeal those ordinances now, if council repeals them based on the signatures that were obtained, we can go ahead and revise our ordinances if we choose to and pass new ordinances. The Shiawassee Cares Coalition, who filed a suit against the city of Perry for not abiding by the charter amendment, was dismissed by the court. So that has taken that charter amendment out of the mix. That is not in effect. They have applied for an appeal to that, but I don't know how long that will take. But we have discussed all of this with our attorney, Justin English, and he has given us that advice that we could repeal those as a council, but then move ahead, revise the ordinances, and pass new ordinances if we chose to do that. Or we could just let it all be stagnant, not have any provision for medical marijuana provisioning centers, and just let it go to the ballot in November. So we're now open for discussion. Devin and I were both present when we talked with the attorney, so if you have questions, we'll do our best to try to answer them. But I did provide you copies of his written recommendation and information, so I think you've had that to review. So any discussion?
I'm just one voice, but as confused as we have been, I think the residents have got to be, probably far more confused with the on and off, et cetera. I personally would like us to consider repealing the ordinances that we have in place and post haste revise those ordinances and get with probably some fairly significant change, get those in place. We could still be challenged ultimately, but I think if we were to revise those and be a little bit more forward-thinking in terms of what kind of sales we want to allow within the city in terms of marijuana, that we might get out ahead of this thing as opposed to constantly figuring out how do we defend the city's position.
Yeah. Do you think, Larry, we could clarify just a little bit for people here in the room and for those that might be watching the video later for the minutes? What makes it so confusing to the voters as to what they're voting on? And we've, again, at the advice of the attorney, we recognize that we have no provisioning center ordinance in effect right now because they achieved enough signatures. We have no charter amendment in effect right now that allows any type of marijuana businesses at all. But yet, the signatures that were obtained, I have had reports from people who were approached by those people obtaining signatures, and all they were told, or what they were told, was that if you vote for this, you'll have medical marijuana provisioning centers in the city. But honestly, if they vote yes to repeal the ordinance, they won't. Because we won't have any ordinance that allows it, and we won't have any charter that allows it. So
Yes
that's what you meant.
Exactly. A yes vote, people might think that I'm voting yes to keep medical marijuana in the city. In reality, as Sue just indicated, a yes vote in this case takes away the ordinances that we had previously put in place as council. And there would not be any provisioning center.
Yet if we repeal these ordinances, the question on the ballot is a moot point.
If we repeal them, they won't go to the ballot because
Correct.
we'll achieve what they want, and that's to repeal them.
When was, I can't remember, refresh my memory, when that charter, when the licensing was going to go into effect? When could they open up shop, say?
What the ordinance had,
Yeah, the ordinance that we had right now.
the ordinance that we have got on hold would have had a lottery held a little over
Right.
July 13th.
Yeah, just last
We
week.
would have selected the conditional candidate or conditional license at, like this council meeting, and they would have had 1 year, up to 1 year, to be able to meet all the state requirements, all the requirements that we have in terms of zoning, have those in place. So it still is gonna take some time, but at least we would know and have a path set for the selected candidate to move forward.
But in that ordinance, there wasn't any restriction as to when they could open. It's just, once they achieve all of the
Right, that's
requirements.
right.
There's a maximum, but not a minimum.
Right, that's,
It could be in 6 months or less.
right.
Could have been.
Yeah, how much they wanna drag their feet?
I think we should take the recommendation of the attorney to repeal it and write
I do too.
new ordinances.
The only thing not doing that would do is just slow everything down.
Correct, so that we do it, we're
Back to square
potentially
one.
delaying it 30 to 60 days, because we have to make sure we get the write a new ordinance and present it, vote on it. So that could take a little time, but it's not waiting till the election and then have nothing.
So if we do decide to repeal, we do need a resolution to do that, and the attorney has prepared an outline, if you will, and Devin worked with him to do that.
You'll note that there's no motion in your typical motions due to, this could have been a discussion to go either way. To make it lengthy, you will have to pull your resolution paper out. All right, if anybody doesn't have it close by, I have one here.
Same on both sides.
One is to
one-
repeal, one is not.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out, which one
If you look right in the middle,
the certified.
therefore it is resolved, and then it says whether that one
Oh,
is
there we
to
go,
repeal.
thank you. I read that fast.
I move whereas 2 referendum petitions have been certified by the city clerk, and whereas pursuant to the city charter, section 5.10, we have to decide whether to repeal the affected ordinances or submit the issue to the electors of the city of Perry, for the city. And whereas the city council for the city of Perry, having reviewed and discussed the same, therefore it is resolved that the city council hereby elects to repeal ordinance 360 and number 361.
I second. Oh, there we go.
We have a motion on the floor from Steve, seconded by Larry, to repeal ordinance number 360 and number 361. All those in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. So repealing those ordinances, I think now we're going to need to have council refer back to the ordinance committee immediately for them to revisit what ordinance changes may be needed and to bring that back to council when they have those revisions made. Does somebody want to make that motion?
I move that we send back to the ordinance committee the task of rewriting an ordinance for medical marijuana and possibly recreational marijuana.
Second.
Motion from Bob, seconded by Chad, to go back to the ordinance committee for recommendations. All those in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
As the chair of the ordinance committee, I just ask council, is there any input or thoughts that anybody on council that's not on the ordinance committee would like to provide to us so that we can get going post haste on trying to meet the thoughts of the council before we bring it back in here?
Well, I think you know mine, I think we should have medical and recreational. I don't know, growing, I don't think we should want it in our city limits, but could possibly do it in the industrial zone. It's my own personal opinion.
I think it's gonna have to be somewhere out there to get away from everything, right? To get away from like the library, the schools.
Right now, the way our zoning is written, if I just talk about dispensary or in case of recreational adult use, they call it a retailer as opposed to provisioning center. Our current zoning ordinance that we've had in the books was 1,000 feet. So if we were to introduce recreational in terms of sales, that 1,000 feet would automatically apply to that and meet the federal requirements for drug-free zone. I'm not personally in favor of going that far to say we're going to talk about growing in the city. I'd like to see us have the ordinance committee recommend that we expand our scope to recreational sales in addition to medical marijuana,
That's what I was thinking.
but to stop it at that point and still say none of the other supporting activity would happen within the city.
I would not be in favor at all of growing and processing. Simply because I don't think there's any place it could go that it would not affect the neighbors, you know, even out in our industrial area.
In what manner affect the neighbors?
With the odor.
I don't know. No horse in the race, I know, it doesn't matter to me. I just know it's coming. I know there's a big one in Weberville.
Yeah.
My son happens to work in the extraction part of it, not the grow part of it. But it's a big facility they just put down there. So,
But the way our city,
yeah,
you know,
I agree. I don't know if we have
we've
it.
got residential everywhere. So I just don't see where it could go that it wouldn't affect them. And just driving by some of them, I wouldn't want to live with that smell.
I didn't want to solve it here, I just wanted, if there was
Right.
some views that we could take in to shorten the do-loop, if you will.
I think there was a feeling when this all came about that it could end up going down the recreational path too. And we kind of said we'd tackle that further down the line, and it kind of feels like we're down the line on it. Like, it's kind of what, you know, it feels like we're fighting some, but it's gonna go that way.
I would like to see us be proactive at this point. Previously, when the charter amendment surprised us and came out of nowhere, we were all reactive. It was all reactive from that point, reactive to everything. I would like us to approach this in a proactive manner, and I think that includes bringing in recreational marijuana sales and medical marijuana sales.
Okay,
But that's not gonna stop Shiawassee Cares.
No.
No, and
Because if they don't get what they want, they're gonna do the same
Yeah, they
baloney
have an
that they're doing
agenda.
now.
Yep, they have an
Correct.
agenda getting whoever that is,
Yes,
their pet supplier to
Correct.
be the person that supplies.
correct.
it's
So I don't know how much time does the council want to waste on this? I'm seriously, you know,
Well, if we get it in
do we put
place,
everything in it right now?
I think if we get it, again, I think you need to, I think we're on the right path with medical and recreational. The growing facility, you may be right, I don't know what the, problem is with them. I just don't, I have no opinion, I don't know. But we may want to start a study, let's say, to see what is the drawbacks of having that, so we can have a game plan, like you said, be proactive. So, then we can say, well, it's this, this, and this, we don't have that, just so we have answers to questions that may arise.
just to maybe address a little bit of what Steve said. When we spoke with Justin, he said that the case of Ingham Cares versus the city of Mason is still ongoing. That city had the same charter amendment proposal, and their city council chose to not even put it on the ballot. So it's a different court case in that it's versus them for not putting it on the ballot, but that decision by that court, if it goes in the city's favor, Justin feels that will give us some relief. So that, he didn't know when that would be decided. Obviously, you know, it could be months, it could be weeks, but there could be information coming in short order that would help a little bit.
I don't know how to stem their activity other than to be as proactive as we just
As possible.
roughly outlined to say, let's take a step, basically is what we think our residents, based on past votes, et cetera, wanted ultimately. So let's try to see if we can get closer to that and hope for the best.
Right.
I can't for the life of me figure out what we could do to better inform the residents when this coalition goes around with petitions so that they're better able to understand what that means. I don't know what more we can do.
I think this is a good first step, just to avoid that confusion, the way Larry explained it. But I'll also remind you that the Michigan Municipal League, their legal department has gotten a bill in front of the Michigan Congress, or whoever passes those, the legislature, okay, that hopefully, they say, will close the loophole that has allowed these cases to come up against home rule cities. When I attended the MML webinar last week, Jennifer is her name, said that that bill was in front of the legislature. So I emailed in and asked her how I could get more information about that, and she sent me the link to know when things are being done. So I'll update you all when I know more, as I know more. So that there's at least some more activity from a legal group, from a legal standpoint, possibly legislators, to try to get a handle on this.
Yeah.
I'd like to encourage the residents of the city to look into Shiawassee Cares, because they don't care. They care about filling their pocketbook.
Well, in the first place, they're not from Shiawassee.
They're not from Shiawassee County. And if they can find information, it's very limited on the internet.
They use a UPS store address.
Correct, correct. So that has to tell our residents that they're not in our best interest.
And I think that was in Livonia, wasn't it? In Livonia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a UPS store in Livonia.
Right.
You
Correct.
can find it on, like, Google Maps when you do the street view. You know, you look at the address, it's a UPS store.
And all of the many, I don't know if it was hundreds or thousands, but many municipalities have been attacked, because I feel like we've been attacked, and they have had the same thing happen to them by groups that call themselves by the name of the county and the word cares. So Shiawassee Cares is duplicated in Ingham as Ingham Cares, in Ionia Cares, in Saginaw Cares. So it's not a group of local people in Shiawassee County who care. It is absolutely not. It is people who are trying to, as Steve said, fill their pockets with
Your money.
your money.
When you're filling out your petition, you can see who's
who's doing the petitioning. It shows on there where they're from and all of that stuff. And they were not even from Michigan.
Wow.
Yeah, they can't, actually, the ones that I saw came from Texas. So he was hired to come out of Texas to come here to aggressively pursue signatures.
Aggressively here.
And we did get calls here complaining of the aggressiveness of the petitioners who were circulating those petitions, but they truly weren't breaking any laws. They have the right to ask you to sign their petition, but if they wouldn't have left your property when you asked them to, you could call 911 and have them removed. But they know their limits, and they pushed until finally they realized they weren't going to get a signature, and then they left. But most people just said, hey, what the heck, I'll sign it, then you can leave. You know, it's somewhat apathetic, but most of it, I understand people do think we should have medical marijuana sales and recreational sales, and we as a council, it sounds like, are not opposed to that. It just needs to be done in a manner that fits with our city. So, anyway. Get off my soapbox. Any other discussion?
We'll be getting an ordinance committee meeting together well ahead of the August 25th date that I previously mentioned in my committee report.
Yeah, and
Stay
really
tuned.
quick going back to that too, part of what they wanted was, you know, multiple licenses.
Yes.
And for a town of 2,000 people, you have no business having all these licenses here and having this turn into that. So trying to keep it reasonable, give people what they want.
Yes.
At the same time, you know, not let it get out of hand. But
Yeah, I agree.
I think everybody's on board.
Any other discussion on that? If not, we'll move into our possible first reading of ordinance amendment number 363. And that is in regard to nuisance abatements.
I have an issue with that one.
Okay?
I drove all over the city and I don't see where there's a problem like furniture on the porches and stuff like that, so I don't know where this came from. Didn't understand how it came up or why.
Why it came up stems back to discussion that our previous ordinance enforcement officer had with not being specific enough, and I'm using general terms, not being specific enough to define clearly what is and isn't allowed on a porch. And I do know for a fact there may not be, at this very moment, mattresses, recliners, sofas out on front porches that have been there, but I guarantee that within the city, there have been decayed and further decaying indoor furniture that's been left outdoors.
When we looked at this ordinance in the spring, we actually did a drive, went around town, and there was quite a bit.
Well, it says there's lots of furniture that you can repurpose for your porch, especially if you have a covered porch. So, I don't know if do we want to become the porch police? I mean, and I push things, push a little bit, really? Really?
Yeah, in some cases, I mean,
But who
think about a couple of
is
places.
to decide who we enforce and who we don't, or what's considered indoor and what's considered outdoor?
Our ordinance enforcement officer.
But how? If you have
By
sewn,
following our ordinance.
if you have sewn fabric cushions on a chair outside,
That's made for outside.
is it?
Yes.
Who's to determine that it's made outside? Is he gonna go up and look at the label? It's a slippery slope. And do we have a big problem with the building
No,
materials?
he's-
Or is the building materials just a definition, right? Yeah, that was just a definition. I just don't see it. I drove everywhere, maybe a couple roads I didn't hit, but I didn't see a big problem. I see people fixing up stuff and changing, and I think it's going in the right direction. I just don't think that is very welcoming to people. I really don't. Well, you can't have that on your porch. Sorry, this is not acceptable. You have to have A, B, C, D. I don't see the purpose. I really
Well,
don't.
let's just read this, Bob, and make sure that we're all understanding what it says. I'm just going to read paragraph 3. Nuisance abatement, and this would be in place of what's there now. Outdoor storage of any appliance, unstacked firewood, furniture, or building materials is prohibited except when the material is properly covered and screened from view. Furniture which is not intended or designed for outdoor use shall not be placed outdoors or on exterior balconies, porches, decks, landings, or other areas exposed to the weather. So, I mean, if it's a covered porch, it's not exposed to the weather. But,
It doesn't say covered porch, it says any porch.
or any
Front,
other
back,
areas
side, anywhere I have
exposed
it,
to.
anywhere anyone has it on their property.
But it says exposed to the weather.
But if I want to have a couch on my back porch that no one can see, who's gonna go check that?
Probably nobody.
Nobody.
But it's on there, you could, so you're opening, this is my.
That would be
Screened from view. It's screened from view.
Yeah, it
It
does
says
say,
any, but then it goes on to say, any exterior, placed outdoors on an exterior balconies, porches, decks, landings, or any other exposed to weather. It may not be exposed, maybe not viewable, but it's still a balcony or porch. I just,
well, but it says except when the material is properly covered and screened from view. If it's out back, it's screened from view, nobody's gonna see it. Who's gonna see it?
And in the spring, when we talked about this too, kind of like the spirit of this is not like drive around and ticket people, it's,
but
Okay,
you
this-
can see my point, it could
Well, if
become
somebody-
that, right? So this is when you
so if we
have,
had our OEO doing that, then I think we would probably have a discussion, and if he was doing that, and it's not what we want, that person would be.
well, we're not, all of us are never gonna be on council for the rest of the council period. So you could potentially get a council who reads this exactly to the letter, and anything left outside uncovered is gonna get a ticket. Is that what we want?
Well, not necessarily gonna get a ticket. The
What?
the process is this.
If they want
The
to,
ordinance enforcement officer either calls them or goes to the door, makes first contact. I'm concerned about this violating the ordinance. Is this a couch that was in your living room? Or is it meant to be outside? Is it designed to be outside? Oh yeah, it's designed to be outside. Well, then it's fine. But no, it was my mom's and she didn't have any place to put it, so I threw it on the porch. Well, it's falling apart, it's decaying, it's getting wet repeatedly, frozen in the winter. That's a problem. So then he says, I'll give you this long to have it gone. If they don't have it gone, then he sends them a letter and says, you're in violation, you have this long to have it gone or you'll get a citation. I mean, so it's a process, and he is working through that process very well, very well. He seems to be really developing a rapport with people. And honestly, Bob, I think a lot of the reason that your drive around didn't cause you to see much was because of our cleanup Perry month in May, when people could put stuff out and have it picked up for free.
It's possible, but there was something, when I read this, I got upset, attacked. So I drove around, there's a house over on, I don't know, 2nd Street, I think it is. Whitewashed the house. It's like, great, they finally doing something. House has been in disrepair for a long time. And there's a house right over here,
Yeah.
right over here. It's got a tree growing through the roof.
Yeah.
So, to me, that would be definitely an abatement, but if somebody wants to put a chair that's not designed to be outside on their front porch, who am I to decide that they can't have that chair on their front porch?
Who are we to decide that they can't have a tree growing through their roof? It's the same thing.
No, it's not, completely different. That is a health hazard. Just because I have a couch out there, I hope people have
I
enough.
think couches could be too, because critters are gonna
Well,
get into the furniture
hopefully-
like that, and
Hopefully, they don't leave it there for that long where they're inviting the rats and stuff.
That's what this is
that's what
intended to
this
get
is,
at, Bob.
the
is
intention
that-
is.
I will vote no, so you might as well just do a roll
That's
call,
fine.
because I cannot support this.
That's fine.
I just think we're becoming the porch police and everything else, because we're all working class in this, and so if someone collects something to make a project, they're gonna have it stacked up, and it's stacked in. If they got it piled in their front porch for months on end, just piled there, then fine. But
All they have to do is cover it.
That's what this
All they
is.
gotta do is cover it. That's what it says, all they gotta do is cover it. If we don't put anything in there,
There's
then
nothing to
there's no
enforce.
way to enforce anything. There's no way to enforce that person who does leave grandma's couch out there for 2 years, because they can't dispose of it.
A lot of the
They can
couches
still
we
put
have,
it
a free cleanup
If
once a
they
year.
are,
a lot of the couches we've seen too also had a lot of stuff stacked on the couches, and there's boxes next to the couches, and it ends up being just a big pile that takes up the whole front porch. I don't think if it's just like, you know, a decent looking couch that someone put out there for the weekend or something, anyone's gonna bother them. I think it's, you know, when someone's driving around and sees something in disrepair, or they get a complaint, they have to have something they can reference to say, you know, sorry, this says you can't have this here. It's not, you know, for a house that's looking good, that, you know, it's for these,
I get it,
the
because-
nuisance ones
because people's
that
gonna
are,
say-
that are health hazards.
Because someone's gonna say, well, there isn't anything, no rule against me having a couch here, right?
Right, exactly, so
Well, then
you
I'm
can,
gonna say, well, you know, why, this is what I wanna do. Fix that guy's house over, it's a slippery slope, I'm sorry.
Well, we're trying to address many issues, including the tree through the roof, and hopefully we will be able to address many issues, giving the ordinance enforcement officer authority to say you're violating the ordinance, you have to take care of this.
and we gotta
We're
trust
not
that the
stopping
OEOs
here.
not being, you know, the porch police either, that they're, you know, okay, this house is a problem, we need to talk to them, and we need to be able to reference something. You know, like, he should be acting at our direction, you know, not, you know, go around just taking the whole block, you know?
I don't
It's-
disagree with that statement, I just say, go back to what I said. You could possibly get a council that becomes that, could become that.
You could, but if they
there was-
became that too, they could also just pass a different ordinance that
We
had
had-
even more teeth.
We have ordinances in the city about political things that have been up for over a year, and no one's done anything about that. We had a flag that was vulgarity to me, we couldn't do anything about that. So I think we're focusing on something that isn't a problem, and ignoring some other things that may be.
We did send the police over to visit the
Nothing we can
vulgarity
do about
flag.
it.
Yes, there was, because we have an ordinance that says there shall be no public display of vulgarity. That flag came down. I know it.
That's
and
all
there
I
are
was saying.
issues that haven't been addressed yet, but we're step by step, we're working towards that.
I've got 5 people against me. I'm gonna vote no.
And that's fine, that's fine.
Yep.
But remember, if
We
they
still be
are
friends.
trying to.
No, that's, you know, that's not my point. I just think,
If they're trying to refurbish a piece of furniture so that it can be suitable for outdoors, they have the opportunity to explain that to the ordinance
do they
enforcement
have to,
officer.
do they have to explain it though, Mindy? I mean, okay, so
Yeah,
I saw
if
several
they-
rockers on
If
porches.
there's a inside rocking chair or couch out on the front porch for weeks, getting rained on and everything else, yeah, I think they have to
Really?
explain.
I saw a lot of wooden rocking chairs on different porches. Do I
Not
know?
wooden, I'm not talking wooden.
Well, that's not
I'm
necessarily
talking-
designed to be outside. That's what that says. See what I mean? It's a fine line, but you could get somebody who says, no, that's not designed to be outside. Was this bought in an outdoor furniture store, or is this made to do it outside? No. Oh, well, then it's against the ordinance. I understand the upholstery ones, okay, that one, I can't argue that. Who would put upholstery furniture out that's gonna get wet in the weather and be rot? Okay, I'll concede to that. But it's the ones that wood in particular, is that really made for outside? You can paint them to treat them for outside. It's an ongoing thing.
I just can't picture that being approach, the ordinance officer approaching anyone for a
Sorry,
wooden
this is my-
chair.
Because I
You should know
hear,
by now, my brain works really weird, and I always go to the worst
Ordinance
thing.
committee, Bob, is trying to take a tall order right now and say, what can we do within our ordinances to try to, without turning in our city into a Gestapo state, try to shore up some behaviors and things within the city. And you're gonna see later on some,
I do. I just, there's,
and we may not have the perfect wording in some cases, but we're trying to get directionally closer to where an ordinance enforcement officer can have a document that he or she can reference, happens to be he right now, can reference to say, this is the intent of what the city is trying to do, so that we've got not a rotting couch next to somebody that's got a perfectly manicured, well-maintained yard. And are we perfect in doing it right now? Absolutely, probably not. But we're trying to move step by step, incrementally, in hopefully the right direction.
this was the first one I saw that I really took issue with.
What is the best, what would you suggest? Because we haven't made a motion yet.
I don't know what this, I
How
don't
would-
know
how
how
would
to
we change
reword
this?
it, I just think it, because it's, I guess the biggest thing for me is the things that are, furniture which is not intended or designed for outdoor use shall not be placed outdoors. So, I saw several that you could, the rocking chairs were what, I don't know how many, there are a dozen or two of porches, that I saw at least one or two rocking chairs that are made out of wood. They weren't like teak or cedar or anything, like they were painted. So were those really designed to be outside? Now, most of them were on covered porches, I saw a couple that weren't on covered porches. So I guess that's my point, maybe it should be more specific and it should be upholstered. But then again, just because there's out there, I've seen it personally, I work on, a lot of expensive houses, so they have upholstered furniture that's designed outside.
That are designed for outside. I
Right,
have
so
upholstered furniture outside.
that's what I mean, it's just, it's a fine line, and I don't know, I think, I'm not gonna sway any of you guys towards my thinking, so you're just gonna have one no vote
well,
on this.
I don't think we're being belligerent or stubborn about it, Bob. I think we're listening to what you're saying. I'm just seeing, you said if somebody's working on a chair and painting it to make it so it can be outside, furniture which is not intended or designed for outdoor use. They are making it so it is now intended for outdoor use.
Right, but so, what I don't want to see is, or try to eliminate, is the ordinance officer has to then, how does he or she prove or investigate that that piece of furniture?
The process is, the ordinance enforcement officer goes to the door, knocks on the door, talks to the person who's home and says, I'm knocking on your door because it appears that this furniture is not intended for outdoor use. What can you tell me about that? Well, it is, it's this material, he can look at it, he can see the tag or whatever, but he is investigating that, just like the building inspector would investigate if something's built properly, or if the mechanical inspector would investigate if that mechanical thing is being done to code. He needs to make contact, check it out.
But neither one of those examples come to the house, any home, after the permit has been closed. So they don't drive by and, unless it's a building inspector, they see you building
The
something maybe.
process of approving it is,
But they've
that's what
already
I'm
approved it,
talking
so,
about.
but we have an interpretation, an ordinance that is subjective. So he's driving by, which is great, he's doing his job, it's what we hired him to do. I don't disagree with the premise of it. The problem is he drives by and sees, maybe he knows that person and doesn't like them, and he's gonna start giving him a hard time. I don't know, that's all, I just see it being, could possibly become a problem. That's all. And maybe I'm making a molehill out of an anthill, I don't know. Mountain out of a molehill, whatever it's like.
I want to appreciate what you're saying, and I'm trying to, in my mind, think of a way that we can address what you're saying. But in my mind, The process is, the ordinance enforcement officer addresses it, goes to the door, talks to him about it. If it's determined at that point that it is a violation, he tells them that, and they have time to get rid of it. He goes back to see if it's done. If it's not done by that date, then he sends them a letter. And if it's not removed, then he sends them a citation. It's not just that he drives by and says, oh, couch on the porch, citation, there's your
No,
ticket.
I know the process, I understand it, I remember that part.
And the
I
individual,
appreciate that.
and the individual does have their day in court.
Yeah,
If it goes that
absolutely.
far,
Yeah,
they can go to a judge and say, listen, judge, this
Yeah.
is, this person is after me because they didn't like me. If this is pictures, here's what I'm doing. So they do have remedy. It's not like we're taking that remedy away from them.
I think it's.
And some of the discussions leading up to this too, you know, that was some of my concerns too, is I didn't want to turn it into where we're just going up and down the street. And the whole spirit of talking this whole thing through is, okay, we need to be able to have a tool to address some of the problem properties that, you know, properties that are in place that do not look good. And if they don't have any tools to go ahead and say, here's a citation, you can't really do anything but ask nicely that somebody clean up their property. And it's not properties that, you know, might not be up to my standard or whoever's standard. It's true problem properties.
Yeah.
You need a tool like this to address it, or you got nothing. So you have to have some trust in the OEO that they're not doing that, and if they are, then that has to be addressed. But that's not the direction they're being given.
I appreciate that, and I do appreciate what you guys are doing. I understand
I had some of the same concerns you had when it started,
the,
you know,
whatever
I
the
did.
word I'm thinking of. I work in a lot of affluent areas. And these are the things that start, like, there's one, I mean, they have ordinances, if they live on a lake 25 feet from that, you can't do anything, 25 feet from that lake, nothing. You have to have weeds. So this is how those things start, just that little bit. That's all I see. And again, I always look to the worst. I'm sorry, it's just the way I'm
You gotta
wired.
think it through, you know, I just,
We do need that opinion.
Yeah.
Because it may be something we haven't thought of.
I agree.
So please don't change the way you're wired.
I can't.
I
My
will
wife's
just,
tried for 35
Maybe tweak
years.
it a little bit.
I will just go back to what Larry said. Initially, when Leland was doing this job, he really had trouble with that decision. Who am I to tell them they can't have that furniture on their porch? And at that point, there was nothing specific in the ordinance that helped him or guided him as to what could or couldn't be on the porch. So that's why this was created in the detail that it is, was to give that guidance. Now we have a new ordinance enforcement officer, but still the guidance is there if this passes.
I understand why you're doing it, I just disagree.
And the way the other ordinance was written too, is it was left kind of open-ended where, okay, you're gonna have a minimum of, let's say, 3 days, but no maximum, and that was so legal
Right.
to work, because you wanted to work with them, you know, if it's gonna take
Go
someone a
on
week and they
forever,
really
right.
are gonna do it next weekend or something, he wants to give them that time and not say, well, I have to do this or this.
Yeah,
So
it just-
it's written open-ended to give them that leeway.
Right. Just, again, it's a slippery, in my opinion, it's a slippery slope. And yes, do people abuse these things? Absolutely. Absolutely. Should we do something? Absolutely. But I just don't want to have porch police or, you know, you got this or that. And yeah, it's under turf, but the turf doesn't look very good. So that's all. That's where I'm at with it. I think I beat this horse enough.
Any further discussion regarding the ordinance number 363 and possible amendment there?
I move that the ordinance amendment 363 regarding the amendment to nuisance abatement, which reads as follows, be placed on the next agenda for possible adoption. The City of Perry ordains Perry City Code Section 678.05A34 is hereby amended and the following is substituted in their place instead. 678.05 nuisance abatement. 3, outdoor storage of any appliance, unstacked firewood, furniture, or building materials is prohibited except when the material is properly covered and screened from view. Furniture which is not intended or designed for outdoor use shall not be placed outdoors or on exterior balconies, porches, decks, landings, or other areas exposed to the weather. 4, building materials including but not limited to lumber, bricks, concrete or cinder blocks, plumbing materials, electrical wiring or equipment, shingles, mortar, concrete, cement, nails, screws, or other materials used in constructing any structure. All other provisions of said ordinance not inconsistent with the above amendments remain in full force and effect.
Second, Steve, is that you? Mindy has made the motion, seconded by Steve, to place the ordinance amendment 363 regarding the amendment to nuisance abatement on the next agenda for possible adoption. All those in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
We have 5.
Roll call.
Okay. Would you do that?
Yes. Chad Fuller,
Yes.
Mindy,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Bob Porter,
No.
Mike Connell,
Yes.
Steve Wallace.
Yes.
Motion passes. We'll place that on the agenda for the next meeting. Moving on our agenda is the possible first reading of ordinance amendment number 364. That is in regard to ORVs. I believe you all have a copy of that. Any discussion in regard to that ordinance?
Probably just a little background so that those that aren't on the ordinance committee understand why this one's in here. It dates back quite some time ago that apparently an issue was brought forward, or questions I should say, brought forward to council relative to what the rules were in terms of ORVs within the city. And in reality, our current ORV ordinance is very descriptive in terms of where ORVs are and are not allowed. And the ordinance committee went back and it brought forth a revised ordinance, significantly revised ordinance, and following that will also be a golf cart resolution that at the guidance of the MML, basically the state requires an ordinance for ORVs, a resolution for golf cart activity, separate and distinct is kind of the background. The ORV ordinance that we're going to go through is patterned after that of Shiawassee County, and we tried to Perryize it, if you will, to be more appropriate for our city.
Any further discussion?
I move that ordinance amendment number 364 regarding the amendment to ORVs, which reads as follows, be placed on the next agenda for possible adoption. The City of Perry ordains Perry City Code Chapter 490 is hereby repealed and the following is substituted in their place instead. 1, purpose. This ordinance is adopted for the purpose to authorize and regulate operation of off-road vehicles, ORVs, on streets in the City of Perry and providing penalties for violation thereof. 2, definitions. As used in this chapter, J, city means the City of Perry. K, direct supervision means the direct visual observation of the operator with the unaided or normally corrected eye, where the observer is able to come to immediate aid of the operator. 1, driver's license means operator's or chauffeur's license or permit issued to an individual by the Secretary of State under Chapter 3 of Michigan Vehicle Code 1949 PA 300 as amended MCL 257.301 to 257.329 for that individual to operate a vehicle, whether or not conditions are attached to the license or permit. M, maintained portion means the roadway or any shoulder of the road, whether paved or unpaved. N, operate means to ride in or on and be in actual physical control of the operation of an ORV. O, operator means a person who operates or is in the actual physical control of the operation of an ORV. P, ORV or off-road vehicle means a motor-driven off-road recreation vehicle capable of cross-country travel with benefit of a road or trail or on immediately over land, snow, ice, marsh, swampland, or other natural terrain. ORV includes but is not limited to a multi-track or multi-wheel drive vehicle, an ATV, a motorcycle or related two-wheel vehicle, a vehicle with 3 or more wheels, an amphibious machine, or a ground effect air cushion vehicle or other means of transportation deriving motive power from other than muscle or wind included. ORV does not include a snowmobile, a farm vehicle being used for farming, a vehicle used for military, fire, emergency, or law enforcement purposes, and a vehicle owned by a utility company or an oil or gas company when performing maintenance on its facilities or on property over which it has easement, a construction or logging vehicle used in the performance of its common function or a registered aircraft. Q, street as used herein means a city street or road as described in section 5 of 1951 PA 51 as amended MCL 247.655. R, safety certificate means a certificate issued pursuant to 1994 PA 451 as amended MCL 324.81130 or a comparable ORV safety certificate issued under the authority of another state or province of Canada. 3, designated streets. F, an ORV may be operated under this ordinance on all city streets except as otherwise prohibited or limited in this ordinance. G, an ORV may not be operated on sidewalks. H, an ORV may not be operated on the road surface, roadway, shoulder, or right-of-way of any state or federal highway, including M52 and the old section of M78 or Lansing Road from M52 to the Clinton County line. I, a person operating an ORV on a designated city street may cross an excluded road as described in paragraph B of this section for the sole purpose of continuing travel on the designated city street. The crossing the excluded road shall only be performed if the operation can be done safely and only at a right angle. The operator shall bring the vehicle to a complete stop before proceeding across the excluded road and she shall yield the right-of-way to any approaching traffic. J, pursuant to MCL 324.81131, parentheses 4, and only if necessary to protect the environment or if the operation of ORVs proposes a particular and demonstrable threat to public safety, the city may adopt an ordinance to close any streets or roads within the boundaries of the city to the operation of ORVs otherwise permitted by this ordinance. 4, operating conditions. Except as set forth herein or otherwise provided by law, an ORV meeting all of the following conditions may be operated on a designated street in the city. And with the flow of traffic at only on the far right of the maintained portion of a designated street. O, at a speed of no more than 25 miles per hour or a lower posted ORV speed limit. P, in a manner which does not interfere with traffic on the street. Q, during daylight hours only, specifically not later than 1/2 hour after sunset and not earlier than 1/2 hour before sunrise. R, traveling single file except when overtaking and passing another ORV and after yielding the right-of-way to all roadway traffic. S, while displaying a securely attached white lighted headlight and red lighted tail light. T, when equipped with a braking system that may be operated by hand or foot, capable of producing deceleration at 14 feet per second on level ground at a speed of 20 miles per hour. U, with the throttle so designed that when the pressure used to advance the throttle is removed, the engine speed will immediately and automatically return to idle. V, when equipped with at least one mirror securely mounted and positioned on the ORV in such a manner to be able to clearly view traffic approaching from behind. W, each operator and passenger of an ORV must wear a crash helmet approved by the U.S. Department of Transportation unless the vehicle is equipped with a roll bar or other such roof that meets or exceeds standards for a crash helmet, and the operator and each passenger is wearing properly adjusted and fastened seatbelts. X, well, the ORV, if powered by an internal combustion engine, is equipped with a spark arrestor type U.S. Forest Service approved muffler in good working order and constant operation so as to meet all applicable noise emission standards and regulations. Y, ORV shall not be operated in a manner that will cause damage to the street surface or shoulder. In this regard, prohibited activity includes but is not limited to actions such as fishtailing and any spinning of tires that disperses gravel or creates ruts or other damage. Z, ORV shall not be used to tow or pull any type of vehicle or device, i.e. sled, toboggan, wagon, cart, etc., with any person or persons on board. 5, license, safety certificate. A person less than 18 years of age shall not operate an ORV on the street in the city unless the person is in possession of a valid driver's license or unless the person is under the direct supervision of a parent or guardian and has in his or her possession an ORV safety certificate. A person less than 16 years of age shall not operate an ORV on city streets under this ordinance. 6, registered motor vehicle. Unless a person possesses a valid driver's license, a person shall not operate an ORV on the street in the city if the ORV is registered as a motor vehicle and either is more than 65 inches wide or has 3 wheels. 7, evidence. In a court action in this state, if competent evidence demonstrates that a vehicle is permitted to operate on the road, street, or highway pursuant to the Michigan Vehicle Code was in a collision on a roadway with an ORV that is not registered under the code, the operator of the ORV shall be considered prima facie negligent. 8, penalties. Any person who violates this ordinance is guilty of a municipal civil infraction subject to the penalties defined in the Michigan Vehicle Code. 9, savings clause. This chapter shall in no manner affect pending litigation, either civil or criminal, founded or growing out of any ordinance, resolution, order, or parts thereof hereby repealed. And this chapter shall in no manner affect any rights, claims, privileges, immunities, or causes of action of the city or other person, either criminal or civil, that may have already occurred, accrued, or grown out of any ordinance, resolution, order, or policy, or any part thereof hereby repealed. 10, validity and servability. Should any portion of this chapter be found invalid for any reason, such as holding, shall not be construed as affecting the validity of the remaining portions of this chapter. 11, immunity clause. Subject to Section 5 of 1964 PA 170 MCL 691.1405, the city is immune from tort liability for injuries or damages sustained by any person arising in any way out of the operation or use on the maintained portion of or unmaintained portion of highway, road, street, or street of an ORV.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a question though on the first third bit, chapter 3, I. Instead of paragraph B, then that'd be paragraph H.
So there was a continuation, and I do have the right as the clerk to fix that. So this is a flowing one, and I checked the numbers and I didn't catch the letters.
Okay, that's all I saw.
So that's exactly what happened, and yes.
Okay.
But he doesn't have to reread all the
No.
letters. It wasn't worth.
I just
And
wanted to
I
make
just told the
sure.
mayor because she caught it too, and I'm like, I have the okay according to my rights to fix a typo.
That's the
like
only thing I
that.
saw.
Yeah. Thanks, Bob. I appreciate you.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
Mike, was that you that seconded?
It was.
Okay. We have a motion by Larry, seconded by Mike. that the ordinance amendment 364 should be placed on the next agenda for possible adoption. All those in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. And then moving on to the next one, which is the golf cart that Larry mentioned, possible adoption of resolution regarding golf carts.
I move that we adopt the following resolution. Whereas Public Act 491 of 2014, amended Public Act 300 of 1949, commonly known as the Michigan Vehicle Code, being MCL 257.1 through MCL 257.923. And whereas Public Act 491 of 2014 created a new section to the Michigan Vehicle Code which allows for use for the limited and regulated use of golf carts on public streets, which is found at Michigan Compiled Law 257.657A. And whereas under the amended Michigan Vehicle Code, local units of government may allow for the limited and regulated use of golf carts on their streets under the terms and conditions specified in MCL 257.657A via the adoption of a resolution. And whereas the city of Perry desires to allow for the limited use of golf carts on its streets as permitted and regulated by MCL 257.657A. Now therefore be it resolved that under the conditions contained in the Michigan Vehicle Code as amended, being MCL 257.657A, the city of Perry does hereby allow for the use of golf carts on public streets of the city of Perry which conform to the requirements of Public Act 491 of 2014. And therefore be it further resolved that as provided in MCL 257.657A, the following is a non-exhaustive list of terms and conditions required for the use of golf carts in the city of Perry. Operator requirements: must be at least 16 years old with a valid driver's license. Must comply with signal requirements. Must ride as near to the right side of the roadway as possible. It is not required to wear a helmet. Golf cart regulations: shall not be operated on sidewalks. May not pass between lines of traffic. May travel at a maximum speed of 15 miles an hour. May not be operated between 1/2 hour before sunset to 1/2 hour after sunrise. Only permitted to operate on streets that are 30 miles an hour or less. May not operate on M52 except to cross when safe to do so. May not be used to tow or pull any vehicle or device, i.e. sled, carts, skateboards, etc. Eliminate the skateboard. Therefore be it further resolved that the city of Perry reserves the right to rescind this approval if in the future it is determined that the limited and regulated use of golf carts on the city streets has become a safety hazard or is deemed to be a nuisance.
I second.
Any discussion? Okay, we have a motion by Steve, seconded by Chad, to adopt the resolution authorizing golf carts on city streets. All those in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. There you go, Jim.
What do you mean?
Next on our agenda, possible amendment of city authorities, boards, and commissions reporting policy. I had brought forth to you a change in this reporting policy June 2nd, and it was pointed out to me through a couple of emails from Jennifer Porter that we were not abiding by what was said. So I communicated with our attorney and with Devin, used their expertise, and have once again revised the reporting policy and procedures. I will read it. Purpose: the following policy and procedures are designed to facilitate communication and documentation between the City of Perry authorities, boards, and commissions and the Perry City Council. Policy: all authorities, boards, and commissions will provide a report as outlined. Procedures: A, meeting notices, approved meeting minutes or summary of actions taken, a financial statement and financial audit report as available will be forwarded via email or other means available to the city clerk to forward to the city council via email. B, all authorities, boards, and commissions, except city assessor, per charter section 613, are required to provide an annual written progress report between January and the first city council meeting in June. C, the written progress report for each respective authority, board, and commission shall include, as appropriate but not limited to, the following: A, past year activities; B, past year accomplishments and achievements; C, status report on current ongoing projects and/or activities; D, New Year goals and objectives; and E, proposed budgetary needs with rationale. The written progress report of each authority, board, and commission shall be submitted to the city clerk 7 days prior to the meeting, during which it shall be presented to the city council in an oral summary format. I hope that this clarifies for council and all of the members of these various authorities, boards, and commissions as to what the requirements are for reporting policy and procedures.
I have one question for you.
Yes.
The approved meeting minutes are submitted. Is that after, I just made myself a note, it doesn't say it. Should be after every meeting.
Yes, yes.
I don't know if it needs to be more clear or not.
Technically, the meetings aren't necessarily approved after a meeting.
The minutes, but that's true. So that's the only thing my question was that everything else, other than I don't know what section 613 is for the assessor, so. And I didn't have a chance to look it up.
It's a different timeline due to taxes and rolls.
But the assessor still has to give a report to the council of what's going on, right?
Yes,
Minutes
it's just
and
a,
meeting minutes and all that stuff. Okay.
are you saying then, Bob, I want to make sure I understand, you want it to specify
I think so.
meeting notices,
I don't want to.
approved meeting minutes for all meetings? I mean, you want it to be that defined?
Or after each meeting, or I don't know, something, I could be off the wall on that.
No,
I'll leave
it's
that
okay.
for everyone
I want it
else
to
then.
be very clear. I don't want there to be any doubt. And I appreciated Jennifer's
Let me think about that
insight.
first before we,
Okay.
so what are you thinking, Mayor? Because remember we had this discussion that there are the Open Meetings Act, there's different committees and boards that have different things to follow. So now again, we're trying to put a time frame on it, and this is in general to kind of cover a communication from these authorities and boards and commissions to communicate to you.
Right.
And a lot of them already have their rules of when those minutes need to be done. So because it did say 30, and I told her, I said, you know, the 30 days is
Oh, we
actually
took
out
that
of
out.
compliance.
No, yeah,
That
we
was my
took that
example
out.
to Bob, is we
Right.
took that out.
Right.
Well, I don't, it's just that they have minutes from every meeting, because it doesn't, it just says approved meeting minutes. Because like you said, Devin, the meeting minutes aren't necessarily approved until the next meeting.
It
Yeah,
says, or summary of actions taken also.
So,
or summary of actions taken.
So that's not minutes, that's not anything that has to be approved. Summary
Because
of
you have,
actions taken.
you have a
that covers
committee,
it.
right, a committee
Right.
that could just have a
If-
summary of
yeah.
actions.
but it doesn't say, the only thing I see is just that, and again, I could be wrong, I don't know. This is, writing and words are not my strong point here. Do we need to say, you know, after every meeting you have, you want to submit these? Because not everybody has a meeting every month, and you know, there could be once a year, twice a year, whatever it is.
Meeting notices, approved meeting minutes, or summary of actions taken, a financial statement and financial audit as available will be forwarded via email.
That could be once a year. I'm gonna cruel all them and send it to you.
Not
I don't
all, not all committees either have financial,
Right,
city
'cause
financial.
like the Parks
So
Committee
you,
does it.
so that,
through
so
the
okay,
city.
so now I'm catching up with you. All you're saying is following
Yes,
the
just-
meeting.
Yes,
Not,
whenever it
not
does,
putting a day or,
If we just said meeting notices, approved meeting minutes, or summary of actions taken regarding each meeting.
yeah.
A
You're
financial
still not
statement and
limited.
financial audit. So there's no doubt, do I just do it after our big meeting once a year, or do
Right.
I do it after every work session we have in addition to the meeting?
That's-
So, yeah,
I'm saying, but I think what he's saying is still regarding each meeting, if you state that, you could have all of them and get them to me in a year. So we need to say following the meeting. Meetings, notices, approved minutes, or summary actions taken, financial statements, reports, as available, will be forwarded following
and you can
each
say-
meeting. So, you know what I mean, that's where,
Can you say in a timely manner, or who's
you
who's
can say in a
gonna,
timely manner,
who's
that
gonna
doesn't mean
define
after each
timely?
meeting. Your point is that it should be given after every meeting.
well, my point is that every meeting needs to be minutes taken or a summary of that meeting.
No, that's not what you just said. So now you're changing your story.
That's,
Yeah, you are. And
I'm
that's
trying
what we're
to.
trying, that's what
But-
we're trying to cover. Now,
Right.
you're trying to make sure that whatever was done at that meeting is forwarded to council, whether it's a summary, minutes.
both, that it's recorded somehow, and yes, it's
No,
forwarded
we've
to
taken
council.
recorded it out.
Not recording, but recorded.
and
Written,
that's
Okay.
why we
however.
put, yeah, that's why we put summary of actions taken.
Okay, then that's
Because-
fine, I have no issue with that.
In a, like a workshop type thing, it's not really a meeting, it's not having formal minutes
Right,
taken.
right.
But there were some actions done,
Correct.
so we would want a report of those actions.
And I would like
done.
them submitted to the council, but I don't know what the time frame should be of that.
Well, it says made available to the city clerk, or other means available to the city clerk to forward to the city council via email, so.
So that's where we thought following the meeting, because your point is after they meet, they should be reporting in some way,
Yeah,
whatever way they create their minutes,
Yes.
they should be reporting or meeting or something. But we took the report out because that's vague. Report and meeting and minutes are different.
Different, absolutely.
And so that was another thing that was clarified. It was, you know, there was interpretation that was going way too deep. So we tried to simplify it. And again, now you're putting more detail in it. And
Just
so
a
now,
little bit.
just how we were going with our other ordinance, Bob, I'm gonna throw it back out on the table, like you're saying, you're gonna make it more difficult for somebody that's reading it, because you're putting way too much detail.
And
That
that's what
gets
the
your
attorney said.
satisfaction.
You've got too
Um,
much in here,
Yeah.
it's too,
I don't want to make
busy,
it too
it's
difficult, but I also don't
contradictory.
want any way to misread it where I don't have to do
What
it.
penalty do they have if they don't follow that?
Nothing.
So why are we worrying about that they're making sure that they're doing that?
I don't know, I guess it's a little point, I don't know.
I'm just,
I don't know, I
I'm just
really don't
being
know.
the devil's advocate right now.
I
I mean,
get
there is no penalty unless one of your boards or committees are actually following the Open Meetings Act, which there are some of these that are. Some of them are just coming together working, and if you want them to come in with a report, you're gonna have to pay attention whether they've had a meeting and whether they're complying. I'm telling you my experiences, most boards that are meeting, that are just working, and they don't communicate to you, so there's no repercussion. This was
Okay.
made just for the fact that you guys shouldn't be in the dark. You shouldn't have to ask these people you appoint to show up to tell you what they've been
What's
doing.
going on?
or provide it to you to
Exactly.
provide to.
Right,
Right.
right. I shouldn't have to beg for it. And I still give this to them annually, and there's 2 that show up annually.
Yes, well, like clockwork.
Yep.
Well, I think this will be much clearer
I think it is clear, that was my
And-
only question was,
if
Sure.
we just make
Do you
sure that we
understand,
get
I do,
everything
absolutely.
to everyone, and if they have questions, or even if they don't have questions, maybe I need to have them have a sit down and go over it, make sure
Yes.
they do.
And we've had, our previous mayors have, you know, council said, where are they? And the mayors wrote the ones that they expected to, why aren't they here? And the mayors wrote in a letter and said, hey, you have a policy, you're expected, they want you here. And then they showed up, but
You started to say something about a time limit for the clerk to provide the reports to city council.
No, I,
Did you
no,
not?
that doesn't, I don't care about that, I just wanted to see them.
All right. So if we say, in procedures, A, meeting notices, approved meeting minutes or summary of actions taken, a financial statement and financial audit report as available will be forwarded following each meeting via email or other means available to the city clerk to forward to the city council. Does that make sense?
yeah, okay, put a time limit.
You got it?
Common
Okay.
sense, yeah.
All right, then we're good. And thank you, Jennifer, for, oh yes, I do need a motion about that.
Where we at?
Possible amendment of city
I move
authority.
that we approve the city of Perry authorities, boards, and commissions reporting policy and procedures as amended and presented by the mayor.
Second.
Motion from Mike, seconded by Ted. All those in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Any other business that may come before council? I do have one thing. I had let you all know, I think a month ago, that we had an opening on the zoning board of appeals because Terry Wood chose not to be reappointed. So I had Megan post that on the city website, made, I don't know, 5 or 6 phone calls. But then I wasn't getting anyone who was willing to do that, and it is an alternate position. But Victor Darling happened to stop into City Hall yesterday, and we had a chit chat, and he agreed to fill that position. So I would like to appoint Victor Darling of 143 West Orchard Street to serve on the Zoning Board of Appeals as an alternate member for a 3-year term effective immediately. I'm looking to council for approval.
We approve the mayor's appointment.
Motion from Mike, seconded by Bob, was it you? All those in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Any other business to come before council? Any public comment? You guys decide you want to say anything? No? Well, we're glad you came in.
Probably missing not to go to the public service.
Council discussions and observations. Agenda items for our next meeting. We have our ordinances. We have started talking about plans for the Christmas Fantasy. That will be Saturday, December 10th, starting in the neighborhood at 5 o'clock, with all the usual downtown festivities. If anybody would like to be involved in that by helping in any way, please let Devin know.
I have one, can you, gosh, it's been 3 years ago now, I think. The Good Boys, or Newsboys, whatever they are, what is it?
Old Newsboys.
There, thank you. We collected at the front of the fire station. Can anybody get a hold of them, the Shiawassee chapter or whatever, and see if they want to do it again?
Is
They
that,
share.
We paid for them. They weren't free.
I volunteered, I didn't know that detail.
It's okay, I just wanted to make that aware, and we
And
had
that's
the-
fine.
We had the
I'd
Sweet
be-
Adelines too one year, and we paid for them.
Oh, so they were during the Christmas fantasy thing?
It was
Okay.
around Thanksgiving.
Oh, I
Just
don't know.
before,
I don't
I
know.
think it's the first weekend in December,
something, it was, we
first
sold
Friday in
newspaper,
December.
their little newspaper, so no kitty, go
Oh,
left
that was
about.
an organization that came in, that
Correct.
has nothing to do,
Oh.
I'm
Good old
sorry.
news,
I
old
I was
newspaper.
thinking of the choir guys,
They
the
do shoes.
locals.
Their proceeds provide shoes.
Shoes, gifts for needy
I think the
people.
fire department did that, we'll have to ask, do you guys recall that? I think we just helped advertise them.
I know I was there, I know the, Perry Township
Sorry, I
Mark
was thinking
was
something
there.
else.
folk, Billy Irwin was there, well, there's.
Yeah, they were looking for
Jane.
volunteers,
Taylor
right?
did too, yep, I'm sorry.
They needed volunteers, you guys
Correct.
volunteered?
And then we sold the newspaper, the papers that day, it's just a couple pages wide or whatever. And all that money goes towards helping needy children have no kitty left without a Christmas or something like that.
I think it's shoes and clothing.
Shoes. It's shoes.
Is it just
Shoes,
shoes?
yeah.
I think it's more than that.
Shoes.
They may have upgraded to scarves and mittens, but
Yeah, I thought it was,
I'll find them.
I don't know,
it's a
this-
satirical newspaper that they put out every
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
That's supposed to, the newsboy goes for shoes for kids.
Okay.
It's supposed to be in Shiawassee County.
yeah, they're all over, but that one, the Shiawassee County one
Yeah,
came
that
and
was
did
at
it.
the,
And I thought it
fire
was toys and
station.
everything, so it's fine, people need shoes.
Anything else? (8:35), meeting's adjourned. Thank you all for coming.